You're younger, he's,
And he was going through, obviously, the emotional trauma of having a sister
that's right.
who's an addict.
Who's an addict,
And
yep.
having, I heard you mentioned earlier, been ripped off by
Oh, yeah.
what the personal belongings and things
Everything.
to feed
Money,
to feed the
everything.
addiction that so often happens, you know, with a heroin addict.
Yep.
From that perspective there. You mentioned that you did have her sectioned. I think that's something that our audience needs to clearly understand, that, you know, sectioning a loved one, as difficult as it may seem, it is a real lifesaver
Oh,
in
yeah.
many instances out there.
And I learned
You
that
know.
through Learn to Cope.
Yeah.
Through Learn to Cope, and that was one of the hardest days of my life, going to the courthouse. I was hysterical because she had just overdosed the night before. And then she ran from me to go buy more drugs after she had just overdosed, because she said if I was sectioning her, she wanted to go high. So I
Right.
brought her to court. After I found her, 3 hours later, she was high as a kite. That was horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. But I saved her life, or so I thought. You know, at the time I
Well,
did.
At the time you
I
saved
did.
her life.
Yes, I did.
You don't save her life, but you may have saved somebody else's life, because, I mean, the whole sectioning issue is that, you know, when I look at it, is that it's not only a question of, you know, trying to save the loved one who has the addiction issue, but, you know, there are many times, and I saw it with my son, he would steal the car and go out driving around, and, you know, I got it to the point where I would say, Jesus Christ, if you're going to do something, kill yourself, don't kill somebody else.
Right.
I mean, I could live, as a parent, I could live with the loss of my son if he killed himself because of an addiction, but I can't live with the loss of somebody else if that addiction, you know, caused somebody else's life. I mean, that's a sad commentary to think, but I mean, that's what this addiction issue does to you as a parent sometimes, you know, and a loved one out there. But the Section 35 is a valuable tool that, you know, parents need to understand, use it. It's there for a reason.
Yes.
You know, it may not be the best experience, but it's a life-saving experience out there.
I feel like that is probably the biggest and most positive impact that whole, you know, program, so to speak, that a mother, a parent, a relative who is dealing with somebody with addiction can do, because no matter what the person addicted, it's in their own hands. It's on their own time, everything, and they often don't care about anything else but the drug. Deep down, of course they do, but they're not themselves when they're on it.
Well, I mean, you know, there's this saying, it's not the loved one that's talking or doing the actions, it's the drug.
Exactly.
You know, it's actually the drug that's causing all the trauma and the impact of everything that's going on. You know, so you're absolutely correct out there from that perspective. Carrie passes. Tell me, from a family perspective, you know, what happens at that point in time? You know, she's passed, you've got to make arrangements. Was there a relief to a certain extent?
There was a very small amount of relief, but relief that she's no longer in pain. She's not in pain anymore. Her dad passed when she was 4, and I just have to know in my heart that she's with him.
Yeah.
She's back with him, and she's okay. She's not suffering anymore. She's at peace.
And as the friends, close friends, what was the impact of her passing at this point in time? Was this one of the first friends that you might have had pass through an addiction issue?
This is the biggest loss of my life.
Same,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's still
Don't
unbearable.
believe it.
It's still not real. But I know, I guess, what keeps me and I think them also going is she wouldn't want us to pity or, you know, crumble. She would want us to persevere, and that's honestly what keeps me going each day. It's not easy, but I know she's okay now and she's at peace.
Yep. And in some ways, you're taking the tragedy of her passing and you're turning it into a triumph, because the message that we're trying to communicate out there is a message that any parent who is dealing with an addiction issue of a child or a loved one needs to hear and understand, you know. And, you know, in many aspects, they say the addiction only affects the addict themselves. Well, that's not true.
No.
Look what it's
No
doing to
way.
the family. Look what it's doing to the friends.
That's right.
Look what it does to the community when you've got an addict who's stealing, breaking and entering, and all the aspects of it. So, the addiction issue is more than just the addict, affected by the drug that they're
That's
on.
right.
It's a community-wide crisis in many different fashions and
Certainly
ways and
is.
so forth. I understand that you are now a member of GRASP.
Yes.
Okay, and GRASP is the Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. Can you share with us some of the, as we saw with Learn to Cope, many of the support mechanisms? Tell us a little bit about the support mechanisms GRASP is bringing to you.
Well, I've only been a few times, but just the people I've met. I mean, they're just
Genuinely
regular,
nice.
just
concerned.
regular, everyday people
That have lost
that have
a
lost
loved one.
a loved one.
A loved
Yes.
one through the
And-
addiction issue.
And one of them very recently
Yeah.
lost her son March 9th, a month after Kerry, and it's just, it's devastating. It's devastating to see that the first time I went was March, and, there were 10 of us. The second time I go in April, there's 12 of us. I mean, it's growing. It's growing, and that's sad to me.
Well, it's real sad that, an organization such as that has to grow out of the death of a loved one, obviously, from that perspective there, But, I think that as we see, as parents who are dealing with an addiction of a loved one, and the guidance that like Learn to Cope does, the great speakers, the reinforcement that we're not alone in this, it has to be a similar experience with GRASP, even though it's not as large an organization.
Right.
But again, you're sharing, I'm sure you're sharing many of the nice stories of your daughter's, life as part of that transition.
I'm starting to.
You're starting
I'm
to.
starting
Okay.
to. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult for me to talk about her because, like Amanda said, it's still not real to me.
Right.
It's really not real. I mean, I haven't really grieved yet. I just haven't. I can't right now. I'm just trying
There's
to keep.
no wrong or right way to grieve. I
Yeah,
study
Yeah.
psychology. I had actually just taken a class on death and dying was the special topic of this class, and there's no right or wrong way. There's no time limit, and there's no way to explain it really either because everybody feels it to their own extent.
Right.
Differently, yeah. And in the case of an addiction issue of this magnitude, there's got to be a lot of anger that's built up inside, a lot of guilt, what could I have done better? I mean, as a mother, you did everything humanly possible that you thought you could do
That's
in
right, yeah.
reaching out for the best of the best. And you saw successes as part of that.
Yes,
and
I
felt
did.
felt
Yep.
good,
Yep.
for the 2 years that she was, and
Yes,
then
I
the
did.
5.5
Yep.
months left. So yet unfortunately, in the end, again, your daughter chose to do something that she probably knew she shouldn't be doing,
Right.
but
That's right.
allowed the drug to overtake her
That's right.
a sense of right and wrong from that perspective. We've got about a minute left here, okay? And usually I like to, allow you to say something to the parents out there, and this may be a little tough, obviously, but if you had one thing to say to the parents out there in relationship to dealing with an addiction of a loved one, what would that be?
Listen to your gut. If you think something's going on, something's going on. Definitely. Definitely. I wish I listened to my gut a long time ago, but
And as best friends, Heather, what would you say to your peers out there when you know one of your friends is involved in something like this?
Just allow your friends to hurt themselves, be a danger to themselves. If you think something's going on, do whatever you can, tell your family members, tell their family members, and figure out what you can do to try and help them as best as you can to your ability. Be there for them.
And Amanda?
I would agree, especially with listen to your gut, because nobody ever wants to believe it, but sometimes it takes a little more to figure it out. And being there, moral support, absolutely. There's only so much you can do, and I feel like being there is just letting them know that you support them.
You're there, okay. Well, that about does it for our episode this evening. Christine, again, from all of us here at A Deadly Silence, our condolences on the passing of your daughter, Carrie. Amanda, Heather, two great friends, great support base behind you.
Yes.
It's blessed to have those friends with you, and thank you for the courage of coming out here and sharing your story with us here on A Deadly Silence.
Thank you.
From all of us here at Deadly Silence, we'll see you again on our next episode.